Events unfold in a stunning adultery story when a man accidentally witnesses his wife cheating on him with her boss in the car. Outrage and rage led him to make a radical decision that turned his life upside down. Here's how it all happened. We begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Been listening to a few stories on this channel and don't even know why, but decided to share mine. Probably because I still haven't gotten to the bottom of it. Case 1. In 2009, when my son was 2 years old, my wife had to quit her job because my main job was not making enough profit and I lost my business and extra income back in 2008. She judged me for not being able to provide the standard of living that I had, and she clearly had no desire to go out to work. Overall, as she says, this was the main reason for her depression and the deterioration of her relationship with me. But as it turned out, the change of scenery still had a beneficial effect on her, but not on our relationship. And as it happens with women housewives, especially with a beautiful appearance, when they get into a new team and begin to bathe in the rays of their irresistibility and the attention of the opposite sex, I started to look after myself intensively. Beauty salons, tanning salons, a lot of new clothes, and how she works in a bank with people and should look 100%, then began to sit in the evenings in social networks. After a month of work, they had a corporate party from which I barely got her out. She did not want to go. Very drunk, I sat in the car for 2 hours and periodically went in to persuade her. Then she got herself an extra SIM card, explaining that her sister's MTS will be cheaper for them to communicate with each other. Literally a month later, I'm going on a business trip. I sit putting things together. My wife is in the shower. My son is asleep. A text message comes in. "Hi puppy, let's go out tomorrow night," from an unknown number. I usually don't pry into her phone, but at this moment, it was somehow at my fingertips. I automatically picked it up and read it. I was just in shock. I dialed the number immediately. The call was dropped, then dialed again, but the phone was already disconnected. I freaked out, ripped the door to the bathroom. With one hand lifted my wife by the neck. With my physical abilities, it is not difficult, and poked her in the face text message with the question, "What is this? You know, the husband at the door and the wife out the door?" She started even stuttering and couldn't say anything, wouldn't give me any explanation. I left the house and spent the night in a hotel. In the morning, she started calling me and telling me that I was stupid, that it was a text message from her sister, that she had just called her puppy, and that I should call back to that number and check it out myself. I dialed that number and indeed her sister answered and confirmed everything. I'll explain later how it was. Case 2. It happened 4 months after the first one. All this time the relationship was so-so, with intimacy all bad. My attempts to talk to her and find out what's wrong. She just answered that she did not know, answered that she loves me but does not want anything. And it's not me, but rather her. Basically, she kind of doesn't know what she wants herself. At her previous job, she was laid off, and in general, the whole branch of the bank was abolished, and she went to trade. She worked till late at night. Sometimes I would pick her up from work, but more often she would drive herself or the owner of the store would drop her off, but not very often, and I would sit with the child. Sometimes she would drink with the girls and colleagues at the end of the day. I was a witness more than once when I was taking her home from work and she was smoking. One day I was waiting for her from work. I stood on the balcony. I looked and saw a car pulled up. I couldn't see in the dark, but it looked just like her boss's car. But the car was parked not near the entrance as usual, but about 100 meters away, at the end of the house next door. I started to call. The phone was off. I waited for 15 minutes. My wife jumped out of the car. With all her might slammed the door, obviously with a nut, and ran to the entrance. On my questions about what was going on, she said that it was none of my business. The next day told me everything. Told me that she was quitting, that the boss to her, and in general, to all the girls at work harasses, and that evening in the car, offered her a choice: I do not or quit without pay bonuses. I dealt with him later. This is a separate topic for the criminal news roundup. I also gave her a good thrashing on the pretext that if the bitch does not want, cable will not jump up. There's no reason to flirt and wiggle ass. She got a new job. Relations in the family began to improve. Although all this time, I Shorsk felt that she was probably cheating on me, well, or flirting with someone on the verge of adultery. And then 3 months later, we have a dialogue. She asked me if I had any desire to divorce her. I said that for the past 6 months I was only thinking about it, but I wanted to keep the family and not to leave my son without a father, and I had enough problems of my own at that time. Then she asked me if I was unfaithful to her. I said no, and she said to me, "Why didn't I ask her if she was cheating?" I asked, and she said that she had cheated once. I took the news more or less calmly, although there was some clarity in her behavior. For a week, I did not talk to her. We lived as neighbors. Then we talked, and she gave an explanation for all the episodes. First, that text message was not from her sister, but from a coworker whom she said she was in love with. They just handed Simka over quickly to her sister to convince me that it was her, and she said her sister really brainwashed her about her behavior. She said that she and her colleague had flirted and started a romantic relationship, and she probably would have slept with him. But I saw the text message in time that she wanted to take that step during my business trip. And then the downsizing, and we parted like ships at sea. Yeah, and that dude got burned by his wife. My call to that number when he didn't answer, and then hung up at midnight, didn't go unnoticed by his spouse. Second, at another job, there were indeed advances from her boss, and she admits that at first she liked his attention, until he insisted on intimacy. But at the same time, there was a lot of male attention from clients, and one man, 10 years older than me, quite wealthy, started courting her, something about a month. And once he asked her to lunch at his place, he rented an apartment in our city. And that's where it all happened. It was telling that she was very remorseful, that she herself wouldn't understand that in that, roughly speaking, more than half a year, how she got off work, what was going on with her. It was like an obsession. And of course, that she wouldn't do it again. Blah blah blah, crying, coaxing, repenting. The deal was that she deletes all attention givers from all networks, deletes her phones, and never acts like that again. That's it, we had a deal. Case 4. I didn't believe her. Trust is not one of my best qualities, so I installed a tracking program on my computer. I saw everything in pictures, where and what was viewed, and how and what was written. Additionally, regularly, I took a printout of her conversations on the phone. And now, 2 weeks after her confession on February 23, she congratulates him on the holiday in social networks. I find out about it the next day, using the deductive method, not without the help of law enforcement services. Thanks to my connections, I find out, again from her call list, his number. After the showdown, she called him once, apparently to set the record straight, and I call him. He turned out to be a pretty brazen caller, but I warned him. Then I found his wife on the same website and wrote a short text about it, after which he and she left. In general, I decided that I was not alone in carrying such a load of information. Apparently, he immediately called my wife, and she immediately ran home from work to explain. Once again, she crawled over and swore there was nothing wrong, just congratulated him as an acquaintance. After that, I clearly decided for myself that there was no point in being faithful to such a bitch. Case 5. Contradictory. 3 years later, after those events, all was well in the family by the way. I somehow in a good such alcoholic association was returning from the bath late at night, and a passing acquaintance saw me and offered me a ride. I agreed. Near the house, right in the car, we had oral sex, and why not? Then we talked on the phone for a while, and then she did a stupid thing and wrote me a declaration of love in social networks, and since I was hardly ever there, my wife read it. She was shocked and came to me with a showdown, but I replied, as she once did to me, that I had a temporary obsession, and I don't know how it happened that she kissed me there, and that if she I mean my wife, was allowed to behave that way. Why shouldn't I? To which I got the answer that she did not cheat on me, that about the incident in which she confessed, sex never happened, that petting began, but she could not cross the line, and she became disgusted and ashamed of herself. And she said that she was cheating because treason almost happened, and also because she wanted to hear a confession from me, maybe to ease the awareness of his villainy. She is not alone, so it is not clear where she lies. What will you say, dear listeners, those who had the patience to listen to this sob story to the end? Friends, I would like to say not unequivocal, not unequivocal. I would put on our scale of reindeerism today's author, whether 5 or 8. On the one hand, well, indeed, a man lives a little, something there is a mess with his wife, sweetheart, wife, and like there is nothing to pick on, like and checks everything immediately, wants to find the truth, but he is deceived, whether he believes in it. You know, it's not clear whether he's deceived or not. At the same time, I understand that he dealt with her boss. Everything was okay. A man's action, I think, well, if the wife was telling the truth, although somehow I think that no, that is, the chief pestering everyone at work. She knows about it, and he periodically drove her home. So why do you stupid agree to it? Well, here I cannot find an answer to this question. Maybe you can answer. Write in the comments. What do you think? And in general, by the way, let's find some average rheumatic, a deer or not, what grade we put him at the end. Please throw your options, as well as what you generally think about today's story. How do you like the wife's behavior, and how do you like her husband's behavior in response to her actions? It will be very interesting to read. I also want to thank you as always for listening to the stories, watch the clips, give your likes, subscribe to the channel. It's super nice and very grateful for my work. And now on to the second story. The perfect marriage lurked the depths of boredom that drove the wife to treachery. Mystery, passion, and dramatic twists of fate surround this story of infidelity that shook their lives to their core. Imagine what happened, for the umpteenth time, but she lost again. In 5 years of life together, she never once managed to get her husband Nicholas out of her mind. What kind of family? Everything is smooth, even, and calm. Anna thought of her husband as a jerk. Everything with him was slow, unhurried, and orderly. Even when Anna tried to argue with her husband, Nicholas managed to find a moment and agree with his wife. And the beginning of the conflict immediately faded, because Anna had no arguments to continue. There was a galantine, often gave his wife flowers. Inexpensive, but very beautiful trinkets and bijouterie. He was clever and handsome, but this is his complete non-confrontationality sometimes just jarred Anna. Even in the store, when buying things, he always agreed with his wife, saying that he trusts his wife and relies on her taste. Nicholas did all the heavy men's work himself, sometimes managing to help his wife around the house. He alone carried all the heavy things, not allowing her to carry anything heavier than a purse. And that hurt Anna too. It seemed to her that her husband was heavy, and to every proposal of his wife to help, Nikolai, smiling, answered, "Carry me, dear." He never reproached his wife for sometimes staying up late at night in front of the computer. Her friends often told her that her husband was some kind of a retard. He never took part in arguments in the company, and if he began to tell something, he spoke so abstruse that many people frankly started to yawn. Nikolai's only little plus was that he knew a lot of jokes. He knew a lot of jokes, but he told them with no-nonsense words and vulgar plots. So not all of them came out funny. To Anna's friends, Nikolai was emphatically polite, making it clear that he was not criminal. He did not dance with any of them, saying that he had already promised all the dances to his wife. This correctness did not please his girlfriends, and constantly joked at the data, saying, "When you bring him on a leash." No amount of trickery by Anna could get her husband off balance. Even when she tried to take her husband out by purposely staying out late at her girlfriends' houses, he seemed to sense everything and know everything. She couldn't even hold a grudge against him. And yet, Anna found a way to rouse her husband. She thought long and hard about it. She had an affair with a colleague at work. Sometimes during that very process, she tried to imagine her husband's reaction. She really wanted to see what he would do and how he would behave. Maybe he would then, like a man, bang his fist on the table. Once at work, Anna had an anniversary, celebrating the chief accountant's anniversary. Anna warned her husband that the celebration would not end before 11, and she returned home at about 20 minutes past 12. Nicholas decided that evening to surprise his wife and meet her. Although he did not know that the custom at his wife's company was to order a cab for everyone before the celebration. At the appointed time, cars drove up and took everyone home. 20 minutes before the deadline indicated by his wife, Nikolai with flowers drove up to the office where she worked. Security guards asked where the young man with the flowers was going to go. Nikolai gave the name of the company where she worked. They let him in. The security guard let slip that somehow everyone had left about 40 minutes ago. Going up the stairs to the second floor, Nikolai found that the office was closed. He had just turned away from the door, about to leave, when he heard the door open with a key from the inside. The door opened outward and Nikolai managed to hide behind it. A man and his Anna came out of the office, hugging and kissing. Nikolai threw the bouquet on the floor, grabbed the man's arm, and yanked sharply toward him, releasing him from his wife's embrace. Then he punched him sharply, first in the stomach, then in the jaw and nose. The man groaned and fell, his nose bleeding in jerks. Anna screamed at first, and then asked in surprise, probably in shock from the surprise, "Nikolai, can you fight?" A security guard came running in at the scream. Seeing the man lying bloody on the floor, he immediately called the police and an ambulance. Nikolai dragged his wife into the street, caught the first car they could find, and they returned home. At home, Nikolai coldly and harshly told Anna, "Tell me." Nikolai was given 3 years probation with compensation for moral damages for his twisted jaw and broken nose. Not Nikolai, not us. His friends never understood why Anna needed to piss off her husband so badly. But the interesting thing is something else. The same girlfriends who told Anna about her husband under the heels of the divorce began to show interest in him. They told Anna that she was a fool to lose such a man, that they were just joking with her, and she took everything at face value. Anna first tried to win her husband back, but then she stopped, rented an apartment in another area, and changed jobs. It's been more than 2 years. None of us have ever met Anna. Nikolai rents out his apartment and appears somewhere on Sakhalin a couple or 3 times a year. I'm going to tell Anna what it is and how to call it. Dear listeners, really, what is it and how do you call it? I am completely shocked by my wife's action. It seems like complete nonsense and stupidity, if the story is really real, but it kind of is. If you like this video, be sure to like it and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. And see you soon.